Hello, everyone. Welcome to the School of Becoming and our first live call. Today, we will have Jessica join us, and I'm looking forward to learn from her and how to meet fear with compassion. I'm very happy to be joined by Jessica here for our first session. Jessica is an author, a speaker, a coach, and she has a pretty amazing life story on how she walked away from a really big corporate job and faced the fear, I think, that comes with that and stepped into her own truth. So with that, I'm super excited, Jessica, to have you here. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself and what we're going to experience today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm so grateful to everyone that decided to join us today. I'm grateful to you, Ingo, for setting this up. I think it's an incredible thing to do at this moment in time. And so if you felt called to understand your fear today on any kind of deeper level, given this real crisis moment that we're in globally, then you're in the right place. And I'm glad that you're joining us. So let's just all settle in and join me in starting to anchor in and hold whatever you're feeling right now. Join me in really giving focus and attention to why you decided to be here today and whatever that's about. And I want to start with talking a little bit about my experience with fear. So it's always interesting when you're teaching a session about fear at a time that you're also feeling particularly fearful. So let me tell you about the things I'm afraid about right now. I have fears around the health of my elderly parents right now. I have fears around my sister, who's a doctor. I have economic fears about my small business that I run. And so I say all of these things to you because what I want you to take away, if nothing else, is that fear is something that wants to be acknowledged. It does not want to be hidden. It does not want to be repressed. When you do, it only grows stronger. And so I encourage you and invite you to also acknowledge anything that you're fearful about today. And if you take nothing more away from this session than an opportunity to acknowledge and have a space to acknowledge what you're afraid about right now, that's okay. And that's my intention for you. You know, I have a long experience with fear. The passion for studying and understanding fear came from very real world experience with it. I was always what you might call a fear-based person. So much so in my 20s, I had really even debilitating panic attacks that would take me into the ER. And through a lot of work, through a lot of going inward, for a lot of wanting to understand what this was about and why this energy, and that's what I'm going to call it, was so gripping on me, I really started to try to understand what fear is about. And I realized a few things that I'm going to share with you today. One, and primarily most, is that whenever I engaged with fear as truth out of the outset, whenever I believed what it was saying without question, without pause, and then I took actions based on that direction that that fear was giving me without question, without curiosity, my life got very small. And I learned to start questioning and understanding my fear and understanding what it was showing to me that wanted to be healed within me. And then I started also listening more to my heart about my life and what it had to say. And when I made that shift in my life, I, as was mentioned, stepped out of living a career and a life that didn't serve me and stepped away from that. I started building what I call my soul purpose business, and something that did. I started taking more risks and leading and living my life in a completely different way. But it wasn't easy. And so whatever this moment in time is bringing up in you, I just say to you, acknowledge it. Know that it is showing you something that wants to be healed within you. And know that there is absolutely no weakness in admitting that you're fearful. And so what I want you to know, a few things about fear. One is that fear is natural. Okay? Fear has been with us as human beings since the beginning of time. It is a biological reaction. It has been something that is absolutely pivotal to our evolution. It's not an abnormal thing. It is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it's actually a very normal part of your brain functioning. If you did not feel fear, there would be something wrong with you. And so your fear is natural. It is a completely natural part of being a human being. The other thing about fear is that it is authentic. What you feel, your emotional response to things or situations that you perceive to be threatening to your emotional well-being, threatening to your physical well-being, are unique to you. And how you feel, experience, and process fear is also unique to you. And so understanding your unique experience with fear and really not running from it or hiding from it, but holding space for it, seeing it, knowing it, understanding where it sits in your body is an authentic experience for you to have. And finally, as I said, fear is a part of being human being. There is so much dialogue and energy in society that says fear is a sign of weakness, or, like we want to avoid it because it is so unpleasant to feel. But the more that you can embrace that fear is simply a part of being human, the more your fear actually can lessen. And that's the trick. And so, as I said, it was a really interesting experience for me, and is right now, and even in preparing for this, to really focus on thinking about what I wanted to talk with you all about today at a time where I'm also really struggling with fear. I speak and talk a lot about fear, and it's not necessarily, and usually not, because this is such a unique moment in time, it's usually in relation to just that day-to-day kind of fear energy that we all experience. That's always that voice of, kind of fear in our head, that negative self-inner talk all the time. But when you talk about it during a moment of crisis, it's something different. But when I usually speak about fear, these are some of the things that I share, which are all true. So the human being has on average about 16,000 plus thoughts a day. There's different research that says, different amounts, and it depends on how much of a thinker that you are specifically. Some studies have it up to people have 50,000 thoughts a day, but at least 16,000. So you're having at least 16,000 thoughts a day. What's also true is that 80% of those thoughts are negative fear-based thoughts on average. And what's also true is that 85% of those never come to fruition. This is all still true. And what I usually teach about then is helping my students and helping those that I coach really understand how to tackle that 85%, that incessant negative fear, those repeating stories in your head, those projections into the future of worrying about potential outcomes of something that hasn't even occurred yet, ruminating on the past, of how to free yourself from that. Because that is where true liberation comes, is to free yourself from what I call the ego mind, which is that voice of fear in your head that presents itself as the voice of reason. And that ego mind is really loud right now. And so your opportunity in this journey is for you to start to be able to tune in from what is real versus what is ego, and embrace the real and have compassion for that, but also look for the opportunities to rise above ego. And so let me tell you a little bit about the ego. Your ego, that ego self part of you, it focuses on separation, not a perception of interconnectedness. It has an absolutely dysfunctional relationship with the present moment. It's never in the present moment. It is always projecting into the future, or held up and stuck in issues of the past. And so right now in this crisis moment, that ego is really thriving. It is probably for you, like me, painting out every single possible storyline of what could happen and what could go wrong on a societal level, on an individual level, on all these things. And for you to help and keep your sanity right now is to really notice when these are valid, true feelings that I need to love the heck out of, versus this is my incessant mind running wild. That's not serving me ultimately. And all these things are all based on how we perceive fear. So know that when you are rooted in ego alignment, you are rooted in a misperception of who you are. You are rooted in a misperception of who you are. And so the strategies then, when I usually talk about fear under normal circumstances and how to quiet that ego mind and to have a healthy perception of who you are, a healthy perception of the present moment, are usually the strategies that I offer for this 85%. This 85% of incessant worry, limitation thinking, belief in scarcity, that kind of drive us nuts. And I always offer and say, become the observer. Get curious about it. Focus on meditation and mindfulness. And focus on mastering your perception. Focus on your ability to choose your thoughts rather than having your thoughts choose you. Focus on your power to choose how you're seeing any situation rather than default of seeing the glass as half empty, rather than default of perceiving limitation. But today, these strategies, yes, they still work, and we're going to go into them deeper later on. But there's another strategy that we need to focus on today. And that is talking about the 15%. The other fears that we're having that are based in a reality, that are based in real stuff that is going on right now, that is impacting all of us, every single person on this planet. And so let's talk about that. So today, what we're really going to focus on is you getting at the surface of these deep-rooted fears that are coming up for you right now. Not the mindless chatter, not the negative self-talk that we all live with and deal with on a daily basis, but the real deep-rooted stuff that's coming up right now. That's warranted. I want to tell you, what you are feeling right now is warranted. It's on a collective and an individual level. In many ways, you might say that we are all going through a mass fear detox together. And so today, what I want to talk to you about is honoring your feelings about fear. And because know this, anytime, and right now is no different. When you are having strong feelings and emotions, and particularly around fear coming up, it is always because it wants to release something. Feelings are about release. You do not have this coming up if something is not being asked to be looked at and released. And so today's class, we are going to dive into, deeper than we already have in this first 10 minutes, understanding your fear, why compassion is your answer right now. And I'm going to offer several tangible practices, and we'll have a group exercise and a Q&A. And so what I want to invite everyone right now to do in this next time that we have together is to explore and have compassion for your fear. You can take this invitation, it is just an invitation. And when I say the word about having compassion for your feelings or compassion for your fear, makes you feel a little squirmish or uncomfortable, look at that too. That is saying something to you. But this is what I invite you to do right now. And so I want to take a moment and I want to pause here. And what I'd like to ask you to do right now is join me in closing your eyes and tuning in. And as you do, I'd like you to put your hands over your heart. And I'd like you to sit with me right now and take a few deep breaths, breathing in and releasing, breathing in and releasing. Breathing in and releasing. And now sitting here in this quiet, I'd like to ask you, what are you afraid of right now? What are you afraid of? And just notice what comes up. Notice what comes up. And now I'd like you to rejoin me and open your eyes. And what I'd like you to actually do is use the chat box. And I'd like you to type in some of your fears that you have, if you're so brave. And I'm just going to get back to seeing the chat box if I can. And so if anyone wants to share any of their fears that they're having right now, great. Fear for my family and family members who are at high risk. Does anyone else want to share the fears that they're having right now? Anyone else? Fear of having to lay people off, fear for my parents' health. Anyone else? Fear of being laid off. We'll take one more if anyone wants to share. Fear for my family, my grandma, being able to operate my business, family, fear of not being able to travel for a year. My sister who works at airports, wow. My family scattered across the globe and I can't be with them. Thank you all for sharing that. And what I want to say to you is that that was brave to share that. And I thank you for sharing that and putting that out there. I really do. That helps us all heal at this moment in time. And so what I heard a lot of, and what all of that is really about, and like I said, I'm feeling it too, is uncertainty. Uncertainty and the unknown. And let me tell you, as someone that has studied fears, this one ranks at the top of the list. So no wonder we are all really in fear right now, because we are in uncertain times. You know, I can't sugarcoat it and say that we're not. We are. And the thing about uncertainty and why humans so much don't like the unknown is because the default condition of the human mind is it will anticipate the worst. It's what we've done as part of survival. We're trying to navigate the circumstance. We want to evolve. We want to survive. And so that is just what we do. But also because part of the human condition is having this thing called the ego. And again, this ego operates in survival mode. It perceives the world from a survival consciousness state of mind. The world is a scary place, and I'm going to help you survive it. That is what the ego does. And your brain, you know, biology, it's also conditioned to just check the environment constantly and look for what's unpredictable. What is a threat? And so if this is unsuccessful, like it kind of is right now, and the brain can't tell what's dangerous and what isn't, anything can seem like a threat, and your brain goes on overdrive. And so here's the truth that I want to share with you about fear. And this is how we collectively and individually start to try to rise above this right now and help ourselves stay grounded and centered during this tumultuous time. Know that your fear wants to be acknowledged and honored, and you all just did that. When you resist it, when you say, oh, I'm not going to look at this, oh, I don't want to face this, it actually grows. What resists persists. It's a, you know, if any of you have heard that phrase before. So acknowledging it is the most powerful thing you can do. It also wants to be understood. We're going to get into this a little bit later, but your fear is always reflecting a message to you. Fear is like a mirror. It's always showing something to you about you that wants to be looked at, whether it's certain limiting beliefs, whether it's just a fact I don't trust, whatever it is. And a lot of times these can be tied to things from your own, you know, past and your own programming. And finally, fear wants to be truly felt and released. We have to feel to release. There is no other way to do it. You have to go through it. But it does not want to just sit there and hang around. It actually wants to be released. And so compassion right now for our fear, and I also say, because we are all in this together, the fear of others, we're seeing a lot of different behaviors right now of how people are responding to fear, and I invite you to also have compassion for that, but having compassion for your own fear, that is your way. And compassion is a verb. It is not just a feeling. Okay? Compassion is about you taking action, like speaking your truth in the way that you just did. Compassion is about self-care. Compassion is about taking the action of stopping the negative self-talk or judgment about your fear. And so when you're practicing compassion for your fear, what you want to do is acknowledge it. You want to sit without judgment about it. You don't want to tell yourself you're being irrational. You don't want to tell yourself you shouldn't be feeling it. You don't want to tell yourself, oh, you should be stronger. Pull up your bootstraps. You want to share. You also want to show it patience. You want to show it patience. You want to practice acceptance for it. And you want to be tender with it, almost like you would a small child. And on the flip side, what you don't want to do is ignore it away. You don't want to entertain your inner critic about your fear. You don't, even though you need to feel to release, you don't want to move on before you're ready. Feeling is a process. You don't want to focus on trying to be perfect through this and being perfect for everyone else. And you don't want to be embarrassed about it either. The other thing when it comes to talking about showing your fear and meeting your fear with compassion is you want to invite what I'll call the yin and yang within you. Now, whether you are a man or whether you are a woman, we all have what I'll call two energies that live within us. They're called the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And where you skew and where you anchor within these two things actually doesn't necessarily always have a lot to do with what gender you identify with. If you're in the masculine way of confronting fear right now and dealing with fear right now, you're taking actions, you're trying to create order, you're trying to have discipline and tactics and structure and protective and strength. And these are all positive things to do. These are all positive traits of how the divine masculine and embracing your divine masculine can help you right now. So continue to do those. But what I'm saying to you is you need to have equal balance with the stuff on the right. You will not move through this as beautifully and effectively as you can if you just bring your divine masculine energy to it and try to organize your way out of this. And so what I encourage you, and this is where the compassion comes into play, is bring the divine feminine energy into harmony with the stuff on the left. So having empathy for yourself, being gentle to yourself right now, extra, extra gentle, doing nurturing things for yourself, being perhaps more open and vulnerable about this than you ever have. Maybe there's something you want to share with your friends and family about this. Maybe you want to even go bolder and write something on social media that you think will help others. But that is helpful to you and helpful to everyone else. And you want to have patience. And so as you create harmony between these two, you will really meet these challenging times and you will heal in the way that you need to heal, because this is the truth. The only way is through. I wish I could tell you there was a way around. I wish I had a secret passageway or some other way to do this, but the only way is through. Because fear is not fought. You are not going to battle your fear. Fear is loved. Fear is loved. And so what I'd like to do now is share with you some practices. If you have notes, I would take notes, though I am happy to send this around to all of you after as well. And before we go in the different practices for meeting your fear with compassion, what I say to you is you can do one of these practices, you can do all of them. They don't all need to be done. What I encourage you to do right now is to really see which one is calling to you and speaking to you, and to spend your time with those one or two or three depending on what's calling to you over, the weeks ahead. And so the first practice, and then we already did it, we all did it together, is what I'll call heart listening. And this is where you consciously get quiet and you consciously shift your focus. You consciously shift your focus from perceiving here, and you open your heart and you perceive here. And you ask yourself and you acknowledge this. What do I feel right now? What am I afraid of? That's it. That's it. If you do that every day in the weeks and or months ahead, you will notice that alone, you will feel such a drastic shift of how you're meeting this moment in time and how you are moving through this fear. So again, it's just getting quiet. It is consciously, what you want to do is intentionally imagine yourself pulling your energy almost down into your heart, like really consciously shifting. You can imagine your heart opening up and you ask these questions and you tune in and you just listen. There's nothing more compassionate you can do from your fear than to listen to it. Okay? The next practice is what I call is exercising discernment. So one of our true powers right now, and what I encourage you to do, and after you do that heart listening and you listen to what is there, is go, okay, is this fear real? And it most likely right now, it probably is. But you still have power and discernment, right? You still have power and discernment. You can still say, okay, how likely is this anchored in real data? In fact, is this me kind of doing a 10x on it and just going down a really tragic storyline that's maybe not worth my time and energy right now? Really exercising your own discernment and from a non-critical place, really saying, okay, I just want to be certain, because I have the power to do so, that this is valid and real right now. Because there's going to be the major fears in this, and then there's going to be like all the other little ones. And it's also, are these ones worth my time and energy? I'll give you a good example. Worrying about my mom right now, yes, valid, worth my time. Worrying about toilet paper, maybe not, right? So really using your discernment and your power of discernment of consciously choosing and focusing where you want to put your time and energy, what deserves your time and energy, and what's valid. The next practice is what I call the feel and admit and ultimately release, because this is what triggers release. Is when you have those fears, what you want to allow yourself to do is to feel them. How do you allow yourself to feel? You just do. You just do. You allow yourself to sit there. And if you need to make it a conscious practice, because feeling might perhaps be something that's uncomfortable to you, it doesn't always come easy to you, which is fine, but you want to sit with it and consciously just allow yourself to feel the fear. Allow yourself to feel it. It wants to be felt. But the key to this also is you want to admit it, just how we did in the chat box. You want to admit what you're feeling. When you don't, and this admission can just be to yourself. You can just say out loud, I am feeling really fearful about this way. That takes so much of the power away from it, and it starts to initiate release. Another thing you can do within this admitting is you can write to your fear. I'm big on journaling. You can write a letter to your fear. Again, because your fear, it wants to be felt and it wants to be acknowledged. So really admitting it to someone else, admitting it to a family member, that is what initiates the possibility of release. When you're holding it, when you're not admitting it, when you're not sharing it out loud to yourself or to another human being, it festers. It festers. And so the next practice is what I call fear as a teacher. And this is when you are ready to go deeper. And what I want to say is you might not be ready to go deeper right now, and that is okay. So in all of these, trust where your own truth is calling you, what is feeling true to you about what is going to be best for you right now. Because again, your own discernment within this all matters. But what I will tell you is that fear in any form, what I really learned, and it was the biggest kind of aha moment of my life, is it is always there showing something to you. It is always there. There's always an opportunity to learn and grow from it. And so what I suggest to you, if and when you feel ready, if and when you feel like you've kind of moved through just the paralyzing feeling of it, you've done some release work, is to really engage with fear as a teacher. You take a moment, you sit with a journal preferably, and you ask, if I was just going to be curious about what this is reflecting to me, about what this is showing me, what might this possibly say to me about my own healing? I don't trust. I don't believe things work out. I don't believe people will show up for me. I don't believe in my own abundance. I do believe in scarcity. I don't believe in my own health and well-being. I don't believe I'll be okay no matter what. I need to work on surrender, whatever it is. But when you engage with this fear right away, and you pause and you looked at it from a different perspective, and you say, if fear were my teacher, if fear were showing me something right now that's ready to be healed, what is that? And make a list. And for now, the only thing is intend to heal those things. Just sit with that list and say, I don't know how I'm going to heal these things, but I have an intention to do so. And then if you really want to go deep on it, sit every day and look at that list and intend and set the intention that the right way to heal that will show up. Your conscious intention to heal always manifests a path to healing. That's the secret. And so if that's the work that you're feeling called to do right now, it is incredibly powerful work. And I recommend and suggest that you do it. The next practice is remembering that you have the power to shift. What happens right now and why this can feel so overwhelming is that we feel so powerless right now. We can easily forget our own power within this, our own superpower within this. And that is the power over our mind, okay? That doesn't go away in times like this, okay? So what you have the power to do right now is to pause when you're just entertaining negative thinking, mind, like going on and on, incessant negative thinking or inner critic thinking that isn't serving you. Now, there's the balance of really honoring the feelings and feeling to release and having compassion. But when you are not in that work and you notice that you're just spiraling with negative thinking and it's not about compassion and it's not about healing and it's not serving you, remember your power to shift. And so I invite you to notice those moments. I invite you to notice those moments. And when you feel called to consciously pause and choose some positive thoughts, choose to see some positive outcomes to the things you're worried about, choose to reaffirm your truth. Because here's the truth. When you're able to master your perception, you actually master your reality. And your greatest superpower is that you still have a choice to choose your perception right now. You still have a choice to choose your thoughts. You still have a choice to think about, and this is where it can get a little tricky or hard depending on where you are in this journey, but you have the power to choose to see any gifts or any positivity that are coming up right now. For me, I have connected in the last week with more people from my past that I missed, and that has been incredible and positive. For me right now, I get to be a part of this and sharing this with you. For me right now, I actually feel closer to my family than I've felt in a long time. For me right now, I feel more connected to humanity than I have right now. And as odd as that sounds, but I do. And so what I say to you is, remember, your superpower is that you still have a choice in how you choose to perceive things. You still have a choice to choose positive thoughts. You still have a choice to choose to be grateful for things. And that is a way that you can, when you've done the healing work, when you've shown the compassion, you can shift out of what I'll call the mindless, incessant fear by invoking your power to choose your perception. One of the easiest ways to do this is just to start, I'm going to have a practice of gratitude. I am going to, notice 10 things I'm grateful for a day or 5 things that I'm grateful for a day right now. And as you do that, you start to shift how you're perceiving and experiencing everything. And so the sixth practice is committing to grow. So following on the last practice, one of the most empowering things you can do right now is commit to growing through this, because that is super empowering. You know, that is how you shift to a state of empowerment. And so what I'll say to you, and this might be hard to understand, and that's okay, but just hear me on some level, is that we are always having the experience we need to have to grow. Growth doesn't come through ease. It comes through challenging times. And so if you can look at what's happening, how this is happening for you, what it's bringing up in you, if you can commit to standing up in this moment in time and actually growing as a human being, growing in your compassion, growing in the way you treat others, growing in the way that you treat yourself, growing in your ability to be compassionate for yourself, to love all the aspects of yourself that are coming up. That is one of the most empowering things that you can do for this moment of time. So with this, be willing to expand through this process, not retract through it. Be willing to expand. And the final practice, and then we're going to do a quick group exercise that I'll say to you, is mindfulness. Again, anchoring that ego to be in the present and not in the future, the past right now, is one of the most powerful things you can do. If you don't meditate, pick up a meditation practice right now. It's an incredible way to quiet all of that fear and to show deep and total compassion for yourself. What we're going to do together in a second is a mindful body scan. So you're going to do that together. And then one of my favorite breaths that you can do right now, that is the most compassion you can give to your nervous system, the most compassion you can give to your mind, the kind of center of fear that you're feeling right now, the most compassion that you can give to the fear you're even holding, like in your digestive system, is what I call the 4-4-4 nervous system breaths. And it's easy. You breathe in through your nose for 4 counts. You hold your breath for 4 counts. And then you release through your mouth for 4 counts. 4, breathe in through the nose, hold for 4, out through your mouth for 4. And you do that 3 times and you will calm everything down. And there's nothing more loving and compassionate you can do for yourself. And so I'd like to invite you to join me in a quick exercise that we'll do together. One of the most beautiful ways you can show compassion for yourself right now. And then after that, I'll be taking your questions. So join me again in closing your eyes. And let's all take some breaths again together. So breathe in through your nose and release. Breathe in again and release. And once more, breathe in and release. And just start to tune in with me. Feel yourself in your body. Feel the sensation of the chair you're sitting on, how it's holding you and cradling you at this moment in time. Just feel the sensation of the clothing that's on your body. And just the sensation of any environmental aspects that are around you. And just start to feel your head tuning into any sensations there. Your neck, you might want to give it permission to relax. And all the way down your body as you just imagine a layer of fear and stress almost unrolling and unraveling down from your head off through your toes. Like a snake's shedding a skin it doesn't need, and just give yourself permission to relax. And I want you to tune in and just notice where you are holding fear right now in your body. Perhaps it's in your back or lower back. Maybe it's in your neck and shoulders. Maybe it's in your stomach or digestive area. Maybe it's in your throat. And just notice now. Feel where it is. Feel into it. And now I want you to give yourself permission to send compassion, love, healing to all these areas. Just imagine you're sending love. You might view it as a certain color or light or just a feeling. But send love and compassion to all these areas now. And just feel the stress, the fear start to dissipate as you give it permission to leave your body. As you take in these affirmations, it's safe for me to acknowledge my fear. I choose to treat my fear with compassion. It's safe for me to admit what I'm afraid of. And just feel again this fear leaving your body, sending it compassion, sending it love, honoring it, thanking it for its presence, because it is there to help you heal. And let's take another breath, breathe in and release. And when you're ready, just open your eyes and join me. The final thing I want to say is that you have permission to do none of this well. It's your intention is the only thing that matters here. You have permission to fail at all of this. You do. And so in summary, I just want to say it's okay to be uncomfortable with the current unknown. Remember, resisting your feelings will only grow them. Compassion is for self is your way through at this moment. If you feel called to, be willing to understand the deeper opportunities for healing right now. And again, you have permission to fail at all of this. So I thank you. And what I would love to do, Inga, with some of your help perhaps, is take some questions. If I was doing this presentation, to speak totally candid under normal times, I'd be like, understand all your fears right now, how they're revealing to you what needs to be healed with you. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But right now is a unique time, and it's important to address that. And the reason, only do this work if you feel called to, because it's most important that you feel what you're feeling right now and release that, process that, have the compassion for it, sit with it before you dive too deep in the understanding. And the reason for that is, that masculine energy and kind of part of that ego is going to want to pass right through the feeling part and get into the understanding. And so I don't want you to miss that step. So when you feel that you've really sat with it and felt it and done all the things to release it, anything that is ever, any emotion that's ever coming up, fear, a powerful emotion, it is always coming up because it needs to be felt. And to release, you have to feel. That's the only way you release. You got to feel it. You got to feel it. So when you've done that, what I've come to understand in all my work and studying about fear, and I'm going to call fear an energy right now, is that it is an energy that exists to really teach us and show us ultimately. And that in that energy, it's always reflecting to you something within you that needs healing. So the things that I experience fear with are different than you, different than, you know, my family members. Our unique experience of fear and tuning into that, it's always showing you. So the practice is you really want to sit and you go, if I was going to say that fear is a teacher and it's showing to me, what is fear showing to me right now, potentially about my own healing? And you just really start brainstorming and making a list. And you just start looking at the things that come up. So if you have real deep economic concerns right now, it might believe, I don't believe my true nature is abundance. I believe it's not within my power or control to generate income. Whatever those things are, you know, I believe in scarcity. Whatever those things are, and you make a list and you sit with that list, and the ones that feel really deep to you, you know, will really kind of, you'll have resonance around. And then the intention is to set the intention every day. I'm willing and ready to release and heal these fears. I'm ready to release and heal these fears. And whenever you set an intention to heal something, it always shows up that you, in a moment and an opportunity, will present yourself to do that deeper healing work. I have other practices that can go into the deeper actual healing if that's of interest, but I felt it would be a little bit too much today, depending on where everyone is with it. But I'm happy to go into it if it'd be helpful and relevant to everyone. As a leader, you're in a unique role, right? Where you want people to feel heard, validated, you want to create space. But as the leader, it's not your job to contribute to the fear. It's to be consoler. It's to be a voice of hope and optimism, right? And that's, you know, kind of crisis leadership, you know, 101, if you will. And so for you right now, one, you've got to make sure you have support for yourself, right? And so you need to make sure you have a place or someone where you can be like, oh my God, this is so, like you can expel all of that, because you kind of have to hold a bit of a brave face right now. Now, I'm not saying you sugarcoat things. I'm not saying you lie, but it's really finding that balance between admitting what you don't know, validating it is uncertain, but at the same time, anchoring yourself in the truth and the facts of the positive things that you do know, and really reinforcing that to your team, you know, whatever those things might be for you right now, the opportunity that you're able to work at home, whatever it is, and being that source. So it's really finding the balance between consoler, you know, giving people a space, but also making sure that as a leader, you're doing what you can to stay grounded, you know, not contribute to the fear, and reinforce the facts you do know and the good, the positive things that are happening. Let me first say that's not an easy place to get to. And it really is only something that comes after you've really sat and processed the feelings, gotten to a place where you're able to understand, how did I learn and grow from this? What was this fear showing up, teaching me about my own healing, about my own growth as a human being? And one day, possibly, you'll be able to arrive at the notion of, we're having the experience we always need to have, right? And I take this from really a lot of learning about nature. You know, nature is always growing and evolving. Nature is not, you know, moving backwards per se. And it's hard to arrive there in moments that are really hard, and in crisis moments where things really feel overwhelming and they don't look nice. They don't seem pleasant. But this is where really like a deeper sense of, you know, your own trust in that you're being taken care of, that you're receiving and experiencing exactly what you need in every moment, and moving on in that way. But it's not a realization I would say you need to arrive at right now. And quite frankly, if you don't want to arrive at it at all, that's okay too. You can give yourself permission not to. This is really my perspective from having done, you know, a lot of work with some really deep stuff from my own past that happened to me. And for a long time, I always felt like it happened to me, and now I see how it happened for me. But this is not something you arrive at in the immediate by any means at all. And when and if you choose to arrive there is something that's entirely your choice. What I encourage people to do when I'm working with them on really deep trauma or really deep darker fears is, again, to process the feelings, to go through the feelings. And if and when they feel called at some point that they've really done the work and learned the lessons, and if they want to choose to see the positives in the way that this did happen for them, to arrive at that, because it is an empowering place to be, but it does take time, and it's nothing that happens overnight.
Jessica, thank you so much for doing that and for helping all of us to understand a little bit more about fear and how we can meet it with compassion.